dewa dan devi judan dembra juruji dunga dan dunga ji judan talwara juruji dunga mebe dewa tamba dan mi talwara juruji yerin chadan dan talwe tanyum teme bala nebra juruji.
I think, to put it very simply, as I shared before, when you said commit not a single unlawful service, the main message is don't harm others. Because if you really, if you really look what's good for you, if you really examine, not from an altruistic point of view, but even from an enlightened self-interest point of view, if you really look, Dalai Lama always used to say, don't be foolishly selfish, be wisely selfish. So if you be wisely selfish for yourself, you have to think, what's good for you? Then if you really examine, harming actually is not good for you. It harms you. You harm and harm, it boomerang on you. Helping actually helps you. And from that, when you realize that first, okay, you don't harm others because purely from your benefit. But when you realize deeply, you realize that, my happiness and my sufferings connect with happiness and suffering of others, that we are all interdependent. So when you realize that, then you realize, that inspires into more altruism. So that also the view of interdependence is something very practical. Dalai Lama says this, something very practical. For example, if you get angry with somebody, and then you begin to get, more and more angry thinking of the person, and then, neurons and brains, they like to, very much gossip, saying, oh, that's terrible, terrible, you get more and more angry. But that's when you don't examine. You think that particular cause is that particular person. But if you really take a little bit back and examine that actually there are many cause and conditions. Many cause conditions. It's not only this person. This person may be a little bit involved, but there are many, many causes. Even you yourself may be implicated. So when you realize that, that's looking from an interdependent point of view, because there are many, many causes and conditions. Things are not, very simple. And so when you start seeing from that point of view, then actually, when you really examine that way, it diminishes the anger. And that the person who initially was the object of anger begins to kind of a little bit evaporate. Yes. And it really, therefore, overcoming violence and overcoming the harm, overcoming aggression. So this is very much a very practical thing. And then, of course, on deeper philosophical level, that you realize that things are all in, because reason why things are impermanent is also connect. Like, for example, when you saw rice heat, you get rice back. That's also because of interdependence and cause and effect. The interdependence and cause and effect, and as well as impermanence, all connected together. Yeah? And then ultimate view of interdependence, when you develop highly deeply, it brings you the realization of Tongbani. Nelu Tongbani, the ultimate nature of that. So when you study philosophy, there's a lot of study of the Temdri,
Yes. Rinpoche was mentioning about the Dalai Lama. I did a reading of the Dalai Lama where he says that a modern perspective of interdependence. He spoke about the fact that the clothes that I'm wearing, the table that is in front of us, it's a product of so many people coming together from so many places. So that kind of helped me out. So if along those lines, if Rinpoche could share something about that wisdom of interdependence.
Okay. When we really examine the ultimate nature of everything, in Buddhist teachings, the ultimate nature is called Tongbani or Shunyata. But the Tongpanyi is not emptiness or not nothingness. In fact, there's a wonderful definition. It's called Takche Tantawa. It means it's free of permanence and non-existing. It's neither permanent, non-existing. Like take this glass, okay?
Yes.
When we look at it, it looks as though it's been there, forever. And trouble with us, moment something exists, we think it's permanent. We attach permanent to existing, and therefore we grasp. Hence, when we realize it's not permanent, then it breaks our heart.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, what I do, if I throw this glass on the heart, I won't do that now. If you do that, the glass will break, and it will be pieces. And the pieces, if you break them further and further into atoms, and atoms also modern physics that do no longer exist, field of energy. So therefore, it is not permanent. It is empty.
Yes. Yes.
But yet, it is not nothing because it exists. We see. Yes. So then you might ask, but how does this glass come? It's because of many causes and conditions. As long as these causes and conditions exist, then it appears. In fact, there was a experiment that someone showed me, that when you put a particular chemical, if you move in a particular circle, it disappears. In another way, it appears. Like that. So it's kind of, because of many causes and conditions, that it appears, you see. So therefore, it's nothing. It is not nothing. There's no such thing as a glass that exists permanently, a permanent existing entity called glass. Because if this exists, all glass would be same, one shape. The fact that all different shapes means it's also permanent. So but nature itself, the essence of it is empty, yet it appears, it exists, like you. We are empty, but yet we exist. We are a proof of that. So how do we appear? Because of many causes and conditions. Many causes and conditions. That's why we each are unique of cause and conditions. And that's why also a body, for example, when our functions, all these things exist, we live. When they fail, we die. So, therefore, I think the wonderful thing about that, what does that really teach? Practical teaching of that is that teaching to show that things are not permanent, show that we must not become attached. We must let go of attachment, because attachment is the cause of suffering. We must love. Yes. We must have compassion beyond attachment. And then, yet it says, when you say it's empty, if it's like, empty, if it's nothing, then you fall into the category of nihilism.
Yes.
There are two philosophies, existentialism and substantialism or materialism and nihilism. Buddhism goes beyond that, called the middle way.
Yes.
And so, therefore, it's not nothing, because there is cause and condition, and as a result, we must be ethical.
Yes.
We must be, respect each other. We must respect karma, because, as Guru says, though my view is as high as space, my respect to law of cause and effect is as minute, as precise as a grain of flour. Like flour, you make, bread and all that kind of thing. So therefore, interdependent things, everything comes because of interdependence. And main thing interdependent because of a karma. Because of a karma.
Interconnectedness, Interconnectedness, interdependence is a very important topic in Buddhism.
Yes.
Like, starting with the thought and idea of karma, all the way to the thoughts and ideas about emptiness is based on the understanding of interdependence.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So interdependence becomes quite...
it looks complex, so Rinpoche could, for our viewers, sitting at home and...
it's quite simple in some ways. Like, let's say we go to market and grab an apple, right? Buy an apple.
Yes.
And we think, okay, I got this apple all by myself.
Yes.
Very independent.
I paid for it.
Yes.
My money.
I work for it.
Yes.
I live in the city, and I work. I buy this from the market.
Yes.
It looks very independent. But actually, when you think about it, there's so many steps that led for us to have that apple in our hand. Right? There's so many steps from the farmers, who grow this apple, all the way to the transportation and to the market, and from your side also, your job, your daily work, earning, salaries, and so on. All this is coming together. So it's hundreds of people involved, right, in this network. So it's not independent, but it's actually dependent, right, interdependent.
So it's if I'm not getting it wrong, Rinpoche is saying, for example, the clothes that I wear also, like, it's like I feel, okay, this is my co.
You got it.
But then it's so many people, starting from the cotton to the whole process. That, and this is exactly in line with what Rinpoche was speaking in the beginning, that we don't question the fact that this table,
exists.
we take it for granted.
Yes.
I have lost Rinpoche.
Actually, teaching of the Tendril is a teaching of emptiness. When you talk about the Tendril, dependent arising, you have no choice but to talk about emptiness. See, okay, talking more in a layperson's language, cause, condition, and the result. That much, even the scientists talk about. Then we really dig in. Like what's made. What's the cause of this, and then we can go on and go on. And, like the scientists could come up with all sorts of theory, findings through laboratory and all of that. But the original cause, right? The original, the molecule, the atom, whatever. This is where religious people go one side. So they bring gods. No other choice, right? They bring the gods. In Buddhism, there is no such thing as original cause. Shunyata, emptiness. If you think there is an original cause, it is you who is doing it now. Just as you must be thinking that I'm right in front of you, and it's your thinking.
I cannot also claim to be the expert on them. Then I'll become Buddha, but I'll be the Buddha. But a little bit of understanding I have, if I may share with you. If I put it very simply, Tendril is what makes ematatsi. Because to make ematatsi, you need cheese, chili, butter, firing pan. So when all of this comes together, then becomes a ematatsi. So ematatsi is dependent on chili, butter, cook all of that. So that is basically saying that. Similarly, how ematatsi is, cannot have its own identity, its own existence. But for ematatsi to exist, it has to depend on cheese, butter, and chili. Similarly, every phenomenon in this world, whether it is a house, whether it is a sound, whether it's emotions, concepts, are also due to so many causes and conditions coming together and making it look so solid. So that is also the reason why we say, because in order to make ematatsi has no existent inherent entity, chili is so important. The right salt is so important. Cheese is so important because it is no inherent existent. Similarly, since in this world, everything comes about because of cause and condition. That's why karma is so important. So, as much as chili and cheese are important in ematatsi, so is cause and condition, which are the karma. That is how the lay jumde comes into effect.
Further follow-up on Tendril would be, how is this understanding? Of course, I think this needs further study subjectively for oneself, but how is the truth of Tendril supposed to help me or an individual?
About 1 or 2 years ago, I went to Risum Gompa in Tashiangtse. So Risum Gompa is one of the very holy places in the east, and it has many beautiful murals. the Tokje Pasam teaching is supposed to be the most beautiful in the Bhutan. So just below that Risum Gompa Gine, there is Zambala, the Buddha of the wells, the holy place. And then after I prostrated, and they said that you should collect a little bit of earth from the dirt from the stone, and then you should check what is inside. If you can see some hair, especially yak or horse, that means you have got a ngudup of the yak ngudup. So you'll have a lot of yaks or a lot of horses. So I was telling them that I hope I don't get the ngudup like that, yak and ngudup horse, because in this modern time, where can I keep the yak and horse? I have no place to keep. But my point is that 40, 50 years ago, the definition of a successful man is how many yaks you have, how many horses you have, how many paddy fields you have. Nowadays, the wealthiest people, that is not the definition. The wealthiest people probably doesn't have single yak also. All of his wealth is probably digitized or in credit card or even maybe paper money nowadays. So that means that concept of the wealth has changed. So what has changed is that in the olden days, the concept of the wealth is yaks and the rice fields and all of that. So that was because of the many conditions, right? Conceptual society condition, over the change, media, whatever, all of this condition came together. Now the concept of the wealth is something entirely different. So that shows that even the definition of success is conditional. It's like the emathatsi. You need all of this condition come together, then so-called idea of success. So when you understand that, I think you will be a little bit less fanatical about success. The success is also very much conceptual thing. It is not something that is fixed. At that 50 years ago, having yaks and all of that, they were very rich in their own concept, society's concept. That's true. Now they are not. What has changed? Has a yak changed? Nothing. The concept has changed. The conditions have changed. So similarly, the fashion. Why is it that every year fashion changes? Because the condition changes. The chili, the cheese, all of this changes. So the emathatsi has changed. So the changed. So if you understand that, what is the benefit is that I think you will be a little bit less fanatical. Otherwise, if you, let's say this year, you are not fortunate enough to look like a Korean boy or girl, doesn't matter. It's a conditional thing. Next year, the fashion might be, look like a Bhutanese boy and girl. Then you will be right in the fashion. So I don't think that much of fanaticism and that much of pride also, actually. Like once in school, I was talking about what is the Buddhist view on the wealth and Buddhism. So I was saying from Mahayana point of view, the wealth should be used for the benefit of others. From the Vajrayana point of view, that to understand wealth as a concept is the Vajrayana's view. 100 years ago, a rich person will be going on a horse. Everybody was saying, wow, what a great horse. Nowadays, a rich person goes on a horse in the middle of the street. Everybody will be laughing at him. Now you have to go on a BMW or something. That is the concept. So Vajrayana practitioner should always remember that even though he's going in a BMW, he's basically going on a 21st century version of a horse. There's nothing to be proud about it. He can use it, whatever, but nothing to proud, nothing to attach about it. So it helps in kind of not being so grasping, I think.
This amazing thing that we use, a word that we use in Bhutan very much, but many of us do not analyze, is tendela. And I don't know if that is the same word which is there in Cheke as well. But tendel, I'm made to believe, is called interdependent. Some call it dependent arising. So anything that Rinpoche can share on this amazing truth that the Buddha shared called tendel.
The subject tendel, or interdependent arise, is actually one of the biggest teaching the Buddha gave. And whatever we learn through learning Buddhism, we realize that actually tendel plays a big role in Buddhism, of all Buddhism. Like sometimes, there is these examples that people make, such as they show a finger to someone and say, in the 4 fingers, which are the longest and which is the shortest. We cannot really say this is long and this is short. Why? Because nothing is fixed. Everything is being predicted through comparing with each other. If we don't compare, if it's not what we say in the Chöke, Jigla Deni Jigjongwa. Jigla Den means it has to be dependent on each other in order to say the prediction. So like this, everything in Buddhism is mentioned in everything, all phenomena, all the cycle and all the environmental way of living is interdependent. Everything is interdependent. Why? Because that is the system. Is that if we really think carefully, we are dependent on our, people, on our food, on our place we stay, on our clothes, on the land. So everything we are dependent. The land is dependent on the earth. The movement of the earth is dependent on the gravity and the solar system, everything. The earth needs the sun. You see, all of this, detail, and not some sort of a theory or story, but it's actually the truth. It's really interesting when we think about it, that everything arises because it's depending on each other. So what I like to say, what I think I would say, is that if people take time with just noticing things around them, simple things themselves, their family, children, their environment, is that each single item or accessory is dependent on each other. So if people can think like that, if we all can think more about that, understand the true meaning of Temdel, the way and the cycle of Temdel, the role of Temdel, it really opens one of the knowledge in our mind. That's what I would like to say.
Moshe, a follow-up on this question would be, how does this Tendel, the knowledge of Tendel, how is it supposed to help a person?
Okay, so regarding to that, how does it help oneself and others to knowing the meaning of Temdel or the interdependence? Is that this is a huge subject, and it cannot be. I cannot really say it in small words. It's very difficult. But what I could say is that what I think and what I feel, my personal perception, is that because we feel, as who we are, as human beings, we think everything is fixed. Everything is fixed. Everything cannot be changed. Everything is, it is as it is, as we see it. When the idea of knowledge of Temdel sort of integrates with our mind, we start to realize that everything is not, how to say,
Fixed.
yeah, sorry, yes, permanent and fixed. Now, when we talk about impermanent, that's totally different. But this is something, when we talk about something is fixed, or something is really made into that, nothing. Like His Holiness Dalai Lama, if I'm not mistaken, mentioned in one of his teachings, I don't know where particularly, but he said, you know, these days, nowadays, we have these strong leaders who think they are very powerful, who can conquer the whole world. But they are really not understanding one thing, is that if they are put in one land, like a no man's land, where there's nobody there, nothing there, let them live there and tell them, oh, if you're really superior, now survive. They cannot survive. They depending on their subject, ministers, even the drivers and cleaners, sweepers and cooks, and simple things as food that coming from the supermarket or the market, things like that. Or the farmers who farm the food. So you see, everybody, all of us, we depend on each other. So the understanding of interdependence really helps us to really be more open and to really understand that we must feel appreciative of this, appreciating. That if we don't depend on this, we are not able to really live on. So always feel the understanding of it Of course, through that we understand more of the Buddhism. But a small, like practical thing we would say is to really appreciate it.
And in many sense, I think it might make us, what Rinpoche is sharing is, it makes us appreciate, respect one another, respect the environment, because we are dependent upon the environment. And I think a good example of, although Rinpoche is sharing it on a profound level, but a very simple example of, I think, things not being fixed is recycling as well. Nowadays, there's plastic gets put into a recycling plant and it comes out as slippers or bottles or...
Very correct, yes. That's very true. Very true.
Contentment is a term or a word that keeps popping up whenever one reads Buddhism. So if Rinpoche could share your thoughts with us on contentment.
The word contentment is choshi, which when you really look at, the old wise folks, and sometimes the very simple, wonderful monks and nuns, there's a really sense of contentment, They say, oh, if you have a roof over your head, clothes on the back, have food in your stomach, I'm happy. They don't have too much desire and, craving, They don't look so much for happiness outside of themselves. And so that's kind of content. Sometimes like such monks, even they may make you a cup of tea, it's so cozy, and really so delicious. They really exude such kind of contentment, happiness, That comes from, having a good sense of one's being, because the trouble with us in the modern world is we're always looking for happiness outside of ourselves. It is said by the great Master Pass, it's only the foolish that look for happiness outside, because once you look for happiness outside, you have no longer control. The wise and learned know all the cause of happiness is present in our mind and heart. So that same thing, as I said earlier about most important thing teaching Buddha is to transforming the mind. It's really a sense of being. We lost the sense of being. In fact, a French philosopher, Pascal, once said, all of man's difficulties rise from his inability to sit quietly in a room by himself. So we don't know how to be. We're always doing, speaking, thinking too much. We lost the sense of being. The sense of being, that simplicity, the natural sense of being, is really a way of coming into touch with ourselves. Otherwise we're all scattered everywhere, I always say that we are scattered if nobody's at home. So there's no contentment. So that really key to happiness is actual contentment, deeper mental contentment, peace, which is really brought by through the teachings, which is really a way of bringing a sense of being, like through meditation, to nature mind, really, a sense of being like this, like this.
Contentment, yes. Well, I think what Buddha taught is that if we, one of our main suffering as a human being, Buddha said, all 6 realms have different sufferings, but one of the main suffering for the human realm is what we call poverty mentality.
Yes.
Poverty mentality or lack of contentment, right? We always feel poor, no matter how much we have.
Yes.
If you're a poor person, of course we will feel poor. But even if you're a billionaire, you still feel poor. There's still something to compare to, right?
Yes.
So there's never contentment. And so that kind of poverty mentality is the real source of our suffering. And when we have appreciation and contentment, then that's the greatest wealth of all. And so, poverty mentality is very creepy and difficult.
Yes. So Rinpoche is saying to kind of put a limit to how much your wants and needs.
Not really we need to put a limit
Less.
necessarily, but we just appreciate what we have
Less.
and move on.
Is there any helpful tips that the Buddha had to feel that?
Contentment?
That? Yes.
I think what tips Buddha gave, I'm not sure, all these teachings, but what I think of as helpful in some ways is
Yes.
To actually look at ourselves and see what do we really need.
Yes.
And this is a question. It's not about what we want,
Yes.
what we really need.
Yes.
Right? What makes us happy,
Yes.
right? What kind of wealth, prosperity makes us happy,
Yes.
and what really we need,
To really ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rather than asking the wealth,
Yes.
rather than consulting the wealth, I think we should consult ourselves.
Yes. 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 Contentment, and the tricky word for it is chokshe. As Rinpoche actively commissions and translates Buddhist teachings to the English language, does the English word contentment perfectly define the word chokshe, and what did the Buddha have to express on contentment?
I believe so, the contentment, I believe so. But although chokshe is such a profound word, it is a noble wealth. It is an amazing wealth. People don't know that this is probably the only viable key to the wealth. I mean, spiritual wealth, emotional wealth, material even. When a human being thinks, I have enough, he or she is already rich. When you are not thinking in that term, no matter how much you have, you will never be rich. So, in that spirit, the chokshe, I guess the word contentment is translating that to a certain extent.
Yes. Yes. And that is what the Buddha had to share about contentment.
Very much. This is actually one of his important pith instructions, not just for the monks, even for the lay people.
Yes. And contentment, not just in terms of, Rinpoche was so kind to share that, not just in terms of wealth, but in terms of knowledge and acquiring of wisdom as well.
Everything. Because at the end of the day, there is no such thing as perfections in the imperfect world. Yes. So, contentment is absolutely necessary.
Yes. The reason I asked that question, because although one would feel that when it comes to acquiring of wisdom, you cannot put contentment there, but given the Kali Yuga or the span of our lives, I was thinking that sometimes maybe you need to pat yourself on your back also and be like, okay.
Oh, I see. No, that, as many followers, such as the great Jingme Lingpa have said, for the practitioners, the practitioners need two kinds of, attitude. One is humility. I don't know enough. That humility, really genuine, pure humility. The other is what I have is good enough. So these two really are quite important to balance out. Otherwise, many times, in the midst of all this practice of humility, one could discourage ourselves and lose our self-esteem and so on and so forth.
Now with regard to youth law, this show, although once it goes on air, it is open to viewing for all, but it is primarily targeted for the youth of Bhutan, who one feels is caught in a storm of confusion with an ancient culture and tradition in one hand and unchecked onslaught of the World Wide Web and television on the other. What message or advice can Rinpoche offer to the youth who are indulging specifically in substance abuse or overall to lessen their confusion? Any advice from Rinpoche?
Since I've been staying in Bhutan quite a number of years, I've known that this youth issue has been going on for a while. And I don't want to generalize it and kind of be a know-all, because when somebody else is going through a tooth pain, no matter how much we sympathize, we really cannot understand what is going through until you are having the tooth pain. So I don't want to act a know-all. But maybe myself also being relatively young, little bit of knowledge Dharma, maybe it will help if I can share my view. I feel that one of the reasons nowadays in the modern society there's a bit of discontent is because we don't realize, everybody doesn't realize how beautiful they are, how beautiful their culture are, how beautiful their dresses are in their own way. For example, just a few days back I was in the Jingmen Polytechnic, the school. I was joking with them that if you really think about it, there's no very good logical reason saying that jean is more fashionable than Go and Kira. Except that, of course, America became much developed before. They have a strong media influence. If Bhutan was the one that was developed so far, probably most of the world will be wearing Go and Kira now. But then, since we do not have the kind of that sort of, if we cannot appreciate, for example, Bhutanese house designed, Bhutanese dress, how Bhutanese looks, we cannot appreciate how beautiful Bhutanese already is, Bhutan already is. That everybody who comes to Bhutan, they always say how beautiful it is. If we cannot see that ourselves, and top of that, influenced by what the television says, right? Television does not say you should look like Bhutanese, probably say you should look like, I don't know, Amir Khan, or some Korean superstar, or I don't know, Bollywood. So of course, then Go Kira is no longer enough. Bhutanese house is no longer good enough. So when it is not enough, then the discontent comes. So when the discontent comes, then you feel, oh, I'm very poor, I don't have enough. Then, I think you want to, I don't know, we want so many things. Maybe that is also why I guess the world economy is doing well, because people here want there and they want here, then they're the commerce, I guess. But that's also how the consumption, materialism, and also discontent. So it's not enough that, you have a phone, you must have a latest. And latest is not enough also, you must have the very latest. So there's no end to. So then when you don't have that, somebody has it, you feel sense of discontent, you feel you are not good enough. So I think the media influences a lot. And if you really think about it, this advertisement, there's no really a good logic. Like I was saying, is there any good logic saying the jeans is very fashionable? Is there no real logic?
They reinforce the discontent.
Yes. I mean, if Brad Pitt wears Go, I'm sure, everybody will be wearing Go. That is the only logic, that Brad Pitt wears Go, and I don't know, Angelina Jolie wears Kira. So now we should, other than there's not much logic. So that is, I think, one of the reasons. Then I think, of course, I'm sure there are many other reasons, but another thing is that I do not know if we say in the normal terms or not, but in our Vajrayana tradition, we have a saying that when somebody says, we usually say, no, but in our Vajrayana, we say, when people say, you have to say it. So I was thinking that actually it makes a psychological sense. Because, for example, in terms of richness, when you say you are rich and you feel it, you are. You look around at people who have known nothing at all, you feel, oh, I am rich. You look at somebody who has much, much more than you feel you are poor. And when they look at us, they feel rich. They look at themselves. So it is very much a conditioning and conceptual thing. So I think if you realize it, I think you'll be a little bit more content. So I think then it will kind of help a little bit with the dissatisfaction. And in terms of substance abuse, I think sometimes we are going into substance abuse because influenced by friends. And sometimes we feel that it will help to solve the problems. But I think, at the end of the day, when you use something which is addictive, makes you feel good for a short time, and then when you wake up in the morning, problems are there. On top of that, you have got migraine or something hangover. But then at the same time, I wouldn't say that addicts should be looked down in the society at the same time, because from the Chö point of view, We are all addict. The definition addict is, no control over it, doesn't solve any problem, makes it worse, but make you feel good. So that can be said for the anger also. When you're angry, it makes you feel good, doesn't solve any problem, makes things worse, and jealousy. So in that way, from Buddhist point of view, we are all addict. So there's no need to look down upon them, I feel. Also, I think we say that whenever we are being compassionate to others, be compassionate to yourself. Otherwise, we become a little bit proud, I am not addict, they are addict. But from Buddhist point of view, as I was saying, we are all addict. Just that, they are substance, we are negative emotion addict.
Now, as you have just mentioned, the youth is actually a very, what I really think is that it's a very, very subtle and a very, how would I describe this, fragile issue. A youth, I cannot speak like as if I'm a very old senior person, but as I am only 21 years old, but what I feel and think is that nowadays the really younger generations are really going through what I like to call tearing apart. What is tearing apart? It's the major modernization technology world and the world that we live in the really traditional world that we live in. So in that compartment, like a really tight sort of situation, I feel that the youth are going through the tearing of these two major powers. We're tearing them mentally, not physically, but literally, but mentally sort of tearing them apart. They're not really sure either they should follow totally into the modern world or totally in the traditional world, because both seem to have a certain level of knowledge for them. Both seem to be needed in their life and in their society. But they go more for the modern world because the modern world seems to be very appealing, really giving a lot of hope. The traditional world, as I can understand, is sort of more of a subtle thing, saying that there are systems, you follow system, be quiet, no more questions, finish. So for them, that's sort of like, why are we supposed to do all of this? We don't know the meaning, I don't see the meaning, it does not help me, it's not really helping my personal life. So what is the point of doing it? It's totally understandable actually in a way. But the sad part is that now that is becoming more of a really extreme point, that the younger generation is now getting more into the drug usage and lots of intoxications. The one thing I feel is that I feel very sorry. I feel very as if that this is our responsibility as a Buddhist, especially not just Buddhism, but especially a Vajrayana country such as Bhutan. The teachers, we have so many great teachers in Bhutan, such as Nangpa Nyingpo, Dongsa Chense Rinpoche, and Jangchub Shing Rinpoche, and Jekhyampa Rinpoche, and the 5 Philippines from the Dzong. It's really our responsibility to really, think about the youth. And I know nowadays there are teachers who are thinking about it. They're really acting it and really putting the effort to help them. And I feel personally it is my responsibility, but until now I have never put so much effort in this. And now I really fail. I feel deeply that I failed the youth. It's my work to help them, but I was not able to, and I have failed them. I have become a failure. So, in one reason is that I feel this is our responsibility, but another reason is I think is a responsibility of the child taker, or how to say, caretaker, yes. Parents, friends, guardian, teachers. So I feel there is a huge, I wouldn't say a problem, but I would say a huge misunderstanding and confusion going on this. So I really feel there could be something could be done on that.
Any words of advice that Rinpoche can offer to, although it's difficult to give advice because it's different people might have different reasons to be abusing substance, but say if I was a youth and I came to Rinpoche's presence and I have a problem of substance abuse, what advice would Rinpoche give me?
Especially now, as yourself, Kamadundrum, has just mentioned, if you were a youth and came to me for that, if I be really honest, my answer will be, I really don't know. Because I feel so bad actually to say it, but it is the honesty that I have to speak. If I had gone through this problem, I would give the best of the best solution and answer. But since I haven't gone through this, I have no clue to say anything. I really don't have anything to say. I don't know actually. But what in my own little way I can imagine and get a little idea, I think what I would say is never to lose hope. Never to lose hope. That's what I would say.
I think because like Rinpoche shared right now, never lose hope. It goes along with what Rinpoche was sharing in RTC as well. And I have a follow-up question later on related to now youth committing suicide as well. And I think that's a profound message that our youth can take, that Rinpoche, first of all, being honest and sharing that Rinpoche does not know, and then Rinpoche going on to say that. Because I think so much of the problem that the youth face now making youth-related programs and documentaries is that they look at life and problems as not fixable, as now this is the dead end, now it cannot be fixed, and they lose hope, and thus they get into substance abuse as well.
I don't want to, although, I'm very tempted, but I have to say, I don't want to be so arrogant to sort of indicating that I know the answer, because I myself am very puzzled in one way, and on the other hand, there must be so many reasons, and there must be so many causes and conditions. Small things like how we segregate these people, how we kind of neglect these people in many different ways. Neglect comes in many different forms and shapes. I think there's so many situations. I think even situations such as the fact that we are sandwiched between two giants is not helping us. But some of these situations, we just have to live with it. And therefore, I would say to the younger generations that they have to be patient. And our education system probably is a bit backward, and we are not really managing to, we are forgetting to teach our young generations that getting education is, the primary reason is not to get a job. It's to really refine yourself, to be confident, to be creative, to be special. Many times going to schools, going to college, getting a job, not so special. It's just everybody does this. And it's something that British taught to Indians, and the Indians have now taught to us, and we are following that. It's nothing special, So there's that. And there also, there's so much comparison. I feel for the young people, I feel for girls, I feel for boys. There's so much pressure to look like Korean boys, look like Japanese girls, look like, I don't know, Beyonce, look like Tom Cruise. I don't know, I'm far behind. I don't know who's the hottest guy or girl now. But there is that pressure, the magazines, the Facebook, the WeChats, and they're going to, they're to stay now. The other day I was watching BBS, and there was a really a group of 3 singers. They were singing.
Yes, the music spotlight on the it's a weekly show that.
And you know, the musician was sort of telling the young people that it's really good to volunteer. And that's it. There we go. That's another one. You know, we have been told, we have been sort of groomed to think that, you know, only good, you know, sort of only worthwhile and valuable way of living is when you draw a salary. Stuff like that, you know, we need to change. We need to really make the people, you know, like if our young generations go to remote places and help they plant trees, plant vegetables, so that we don't have to buy from outside. And the satisfaction of having done that probably is so much more than cash. And this is something that we could maybe introduce and see. So as I said earlier, I don't want to be, although I'm tempted, I don't want to be so arrogant to say that I have the answer for this. This is, of course, definitely a growing concern for me, and it's not going to get better. I mean, I'm sorry to be very pessimistic. I'm by nature a little bit pessimistic, but the fact that you are asking me this question, and the fact that we are discussing this, I think that's quite good. I think we should discuss this more.
I'm not sure what to say exactly, but I would say that what you have here as a heritage of both spiritual and cultural heritage of this Buddhist teaching, or inspired by Buddhist teachings, it's really something very precious, something that no other countries, you know, all have. And so I think this is something that you must treasure and see the value of this. You know, as you can see, throughout the world, people are so interested in connecting with such principles, and they don't have opportunity. And whereas here, you know, you have plenty of opportunities, and so much opportunity here. So I think it's really very important for the youth to uphold this tradition.